What's up, bros? Welcome to another Brograph tutorial. I'm Dave Koss, and today we're going to be talking about reflectance. So when I heard about reflectance for the first time, I was super hesitant. I didn't know what to expect. I don't like change. That was introduced in R16, and many of you may still be on R15 and not on 16 yet. I kind of had both for a while, and I was transitioning into R16 for a while, and I just really didn't want to learn reflectance because it was like I was comfortable with the existing specular and reflection channels, and I was just like, I don't want to have to learn something new. So I kind of had to force myself to learn, and I was really amazed how useful it is once I got down into it. You just got to force yourself to use it, though. It's very intimidating if you're kind of a seasoned C4D user because you have to adapt to it. It's something that you have to use. It's not like they added some sort of feature in the background or in some far-off menu somewhere that you don't have to learn. This is a pretty big deal if you're going to continue using R16. Now that R16 has been out for a while, close to a year now, I figured I would share what I've learned about it. We won't go over everything about it, but this might give you a better idea of how it could be used and give you a better understanding of it as a whole. It's also valuable if you're learning third-party renderers like Octane, because there's terminology and there's ways to go about doing reflections that now with R16, the Reflectance channel, that are more like some of those third-party renderers and other renderers out there. Things like Roughness. Roughness is one of them. So we're going to go through this. We're going to go through the channel briefly. I'll just kind of show you what it looks like if you've never seen it before. And I'm in the habit of going to Octane. All right, just let me open a regular, brand new texture, and under Reflectance, this is what it looks like. So before, if you were familiar with the Specular tab, it is now here. This is default Specular, and you have actually more options than you had before, I believe. So this one and this one are the two that, if you've done Brograph tutorials before, we talk about, is it low and wide, or is it tall and pointy? And so all your specular legacy stuff is still there. The only difference is if you want to add reflection now, you add it right here. You have this little add button, and there's a bunch of different kinds. In general, I stick with the Beckman, which will give you default kind of a mirror texture. And that becomes one of your layers of reflection. I'll just type that out there. And hello, reflection. All right, there we go. One of the things I am going to mention, and I'll open this up. Hopefully, you can see this a little bit better this way, is that you have your strength of your reflection, and that's different than your reflection strength. So you got your reflection amount here, and you've got your reflection strength right here. Okay. Now this is the reflection in general. I'll bring up a color. Let's do like red so you can really see this here. Now you see there's no red right now in this reflection. It's like a mirror. If I start backing this off, it mixes between the two. You've got the red right here by itself, and you've got 100% the mirror, and in the middle you have a mix of both. This isn't to be confused with the reflection strength, because if I bring down my reflection strength, I might still have the same color red going on here. I got my 50%. I just don't want to see as much reflection, and that's the big difference here, and that can be used to your advantage. Now, I'm going to delete this layer, this material, and I'm going to show you how to use this to create a really nice looking label for a bottle. This is a bottle here that I've already built just with a spline, and I've kind of mixed it down, and I'm going to put this in a zip file. You can get it at brograph.com. if you go to tutorials and go to this tutorial, you can get the assets there, as well as the texture that you're going to need for this, because I kind of have a pre-built texture that you can use here. So in my setup here, I've got the bottle, I've got whiskey, and I've got the cap on top. And that's all I got going on in this scene. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select all, Alt-G, it's going to put that in a null. I'm going to put all of that together right there. And then I need to create an environment for this, because now my favorite little thing to use here, Alt-R, gives you the interactive render window here. Oops. And you can see what's going on. You can barely see the bottle. So we need to create an environment for this before we do anything else. I'm going to create a sky. Right now it's a blank sky, and we're going to put an HDR map in here. There will be one provided with the tutorial if you get that zip file. If you don't want to do that though, you can type HDR into your search in your content browser, and you've got a number of different ones you can use. What I'm going to do though is use the one that we did from our first nuke tutorial with Joe, and I'm going to create a new material down here. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is turn off reflectance and color. I'm going to turn on luminance only. With luminance only on, I'm going to go in here, and there is this texture. It's called the Brograph sky that we built, an HDR that we actually built in the nuke tutorial. If it will load up here, we'll see. It's a really big file, I believe. Let's just do it this way. So I'm going to click these dots right here, open up that sky, and it's going to bring that in. And here on my sky, I'm going to now drag that material in all of its glory over here. Now we have something to work with. Other thing I'm going to do is in editor, texture preview size, I'm going to change it to 16 meg so we can kind of see what we're doing here. So there we go. All right, my Alt-R back on so I can see what I'm doing. You see there's this little triangle here. This is your quality. You can go super, super low or bring it up. I like to use this so I can quickly see a change that I'm working on over here on the side, and don't have to wait for it to render. So that's in place. I don't need any lights or anything for this particular scene. So I'm going to go over to Photoshop, and there's the label PSD that will be provided in that zip, and I'm going to open it up here. And I'm going to show you what's in here. I've got the diffuse channel, and it's basically a super basic label. And I have divided into different folders inside of Photoshop different elements I want to use to create a real slick looking label. There's some parts of this, if I turn it off, you can see there's like the text and the different pieces. Here's the main stripe. What I've done is divided this into different types of reflection, one of them being light gold. If I turn on light gold, you can see all I did was pull the light gold elements, and then I pulled a strip right here for the light gold from the bottle. Now notice that they're different colors. This honestly doesn't matter, because what we're doing here is we're going to use the alpha channel from whatever's in this folder. This could be any color. Now, if you're going to be using third-party renders such as Octane, my recommendation, since you'll probably be making separate Photoshop files with these elements, is I would, anything that you want to do an alpha channel, make it black. And the reason for that is if you do this as white, and you fill this whole thing as white, and you want to do an alpha channel, it's going to use light and dark values, kind of like luminance values, and it will interpret your transparency here as white. So if you made all of this white, the background, once you saved it, it would interpret as white. Because what happens if you have a Photoshop file and you save it as a JPEG? It's just, it changes the transparency to white. So this would be all white. So use black. In this case, we're not using a third-party render engine, so it doesn't matter. Whatever is in here, we're going to use the alpha channel of that. So I have another one here. This is the red. This is just the red part of the label. I've got reflection dark gold because I also have dark gold. So these are the different pieces. If I put them on top of each other, you see right there, there's the dark gold. Here's the red. And, you know, that's not changing because it's the same color, but there is the light gold. Now, I've also created a bump. And there are these lines right here. In case you can't see it, I'll zoom in. There's these lines going through. And you can see that they're only on the red part of the label, and they do not affect this section here that says red label, because I don't want that bump there. And all this are some white lines that I created and gave a very slight blur to, maybe like a Gaussian blur of like number 2 or something like that. I'm going to pause before my espresso gets cold. It's almost cold. I better finish it quick. All right. So now that this is set up, and I'll have this set up for you and you can download it, we're going to take this into Cinema 4D. So here's our bottle. We're going to start working. On the bottle here, if you change your display type so that you can see some sort of wireframe, you can see the bottle is fairly segmented. And I like to get in the habit of using selection tags because, again, third-party render engines and stuff like that, you really will have trouble if you don't specifically put things in certain places, set selection tags, and set up your textures so that they line up without tiling. And I'm going to show you what that means. In my front view, I've got the bottle, and I'm going to go to my polygon selection tag. Now you can see that I already have this selected from earlier, but I'll go ahead and deselect, and I'm going to use a rectangle selection tool. What I want to do is have tolerance selection on. I also want to have only select visible elements on because I would like to select just this part. Now it could be anywhere in here. Tolerance selection means that if you're even touching a segment, it's going to select. See, if I have it off and I do this, it's not going to do anything because you need to get the whole segment. But then you can end up selecting other things you don't want to. In this case, if I have it on, I can select this. Now, if only select visible elements is off, watch what happens. I select this, and it selects stuff behind the bottle, on the back side of the bottle that I don't want to select. I just want the front piece. So these are both on. I'm going to select that, and there we go. We have a perfect front area selected. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use the set selection tag, which I have in my tools up here, but most of you probably don't have it set up like that. It's in the select menu, set selection. Now get in this habit. Get in this habit of typing in a name for your set selection, because if you don't and you get a whole bunch of them and you have to go back and rename them, then you're going to have to reassign them. I'll show you what that means. Right now it says polygon selection, and I want to put my label onto the bottle. So first thing I'm going to do is double click down here. I've got a new material, and I'm going to call that label, as well as call this one from earlier sky. Remember to label things. All right, and my color, I'm just going to select that label. This is our base texture. Now on the bottle, if I put this texture onto the bottle in my object browser, this is what happens. Now I want to assign this selection tag so it's only in that area we selected. The way that I do that, two ways. I can either drag this to selection, or I could just type it in. And I'm really in the habit of typing it in because I'll type in a name, hit copy, shortcut on the keyboard, paste it down here. It's super quick. Now, what I was talking about earlier, if you assign your selection tag, see, just in that area. And then you say, oh, you know what? I have a whole bunch of selection tags now. I need to name this something. I'm going to name this label. You can see I'm copying it right now. It disappears because this is looking for a polygon selection. So make sure that you label it in the first place. So that's done. That's in place. Now we got to set this thing up. Now it's not going to be UVW mapped, not spherical as it is by default. It's not boxed. It's not flat. What is it? What kind of projection is this? This is cylindrical. Cylindrical. My God. All right. That's hard to say. So you can see what it does here. Now it's just a big mess, right? So, luckily, I wrote down on my other screen here at one point what the exact coordinates were so that you don't have to guess. If I can find my screenshots. I know they're in here somewhere. Didn't want to have to mess with it. I should have pulled this up earlier. Sorry. And now I'm looking through lots of old screenshots because I take a lot of them in a day. All right. Here we go. So, I got my settings here, and I will read them to you as we go. Now, just to show you what's going on here, this little button right here is super handy. You can see right now this is set to like UVW or spherical. Oh, no, there we go. We're good. All right, it's a cylinder, right? That's a cylinder. So if we put that texture in here, it's taking up this entire cylinder. We don't want to do that. However, we do want it to wrap around the bottle, just not that much. You can see if I change this, we're changing the shape of our cylinder to something that would look more about the size of the bottle. And if we want to grab, we can do this. Now, I'll show you why you don't want to tile here. Let's say that I get my label where I want it to be, like super small, like that. Now, it's not aligned with the bottle. However, you're seeing it here. Why is that? That's because tiling is on. So it's tiling over and over and over and over again. Now, if you're working with anything third party, you're not going to want to do that because you're going to have problems later. And if you're working with something like Octane, it's best just to have everything set up ahead of time. So I'm going to turn off tiling, and I'm going to go in here and put in the values that I already figured out just because, you know, I can. All right. Offset 5, offset U is 5, offset V is 50%, length 39% on U, and length V is 4%. All right, there we go. And did that work? Apparently not. Huh, weird. That is really weird. Okay, well, just going to bring it around myself then, because I can. Now, there is our pretty label. Now, we don't know if it's aligned. We need to go to the front view, and we need to go to something that is more of a constant shade because, you know, you can't tell. If you're in a perspective view, you're like, even if you're trying to get right straight to the front, you can't tell if it's exactly right. Your front view, that's going to give you true accuracy as far as lining stuff up. So there we go. There is the label, and I think it needs to be bigger than that. That's what she said. All right. There we go. I got my label on here. I'm not going to do much more with the bottle, but you can see if I hit Alt-R, there we go. First problem, of course, is that we have no alpha channel, cutting it out. So on your label texture, you go to Basic, you turn on Alpha, and under Alpha, because you already brought this texture in, you can go to Bitmaps, and you can say Label. Boom. The alpha channel from that Photoshop file has come in. Now, every now and then, just depending on your situation, your type of alpha channel, you're going to get this little crud going on here on the edges. I don't even know if you can see that in here. Easy, usually the easy fix for that is you turn on invert and you turn off soft in your alpha channel. And that should I say, get rid of it. Looks like it did. A little stair-stepping, but I think we're okay. So the second thing about this is it's very flat. It's very boring. First thing you notice that it's a super, super wide specular. So let's go to Reflectance. And under Specular, I'm going to do a very skinny and, I don't know, not too tall, maybe 25% specular. We'll see what happens. I am going to bring this quality on my quick view here down so it's a lot faster. I actually can go wider and taller with that. You know, we want a little bit of specular on the label. That's probably fine. Maybe we'll come back and adjust that later. So let's get some reflections going on in the gold, in the light gold. So these two strips and then all of the writing. Let's make that part look pretty. The first thing I'm going to do is add a simple Beckman layer. I'm going to call it light gold. And why does that keep happening? Light gold. All right. Now that it's in here, so we can dig down and I can show you some of these cool options, you've got your basic mirror texture. Well, we don't want that. So I am going to back that off a little bit. Let's see what we got. And we're going to let that blend with the gold texture that we already had in here. I'm actually going to say 75%. But at the same time, we want to back off the reflection strength a little bit. We'll say like 75. Now, it's on the whole label. We don't want that. We want the gold just to be in these little sections. So it's very simple. We go down to this little area called Layer Mask. And we're going to load, again, bitmaps back to the label. We're going to load that label. However, if you click the little tick next to texture, you can go in here and you can select what layer you want. I'm going to say that I want the light gold layer from before. Now, I don't want to use the layer itself. And the reason for that is because if I use an alpha channel that has gold in it, then it's going to take that value and use that for the alpha, which would be, you know, not white, but it would be like, I don't know, 80% white or something like that. And it's going to not work the way we want. We want the layer alpha. You can see this changes right here to white. So we're taking the alpha, and that's in our mask. And so there we go. So now that reflection is only in those areas we selected. Now, that's still too much. There's a couple things we're going to do here. Number one is that if you look at something that's gold, it doesn't have a white specular on it. It has a gold specular. So in your layer color right here, you can click and pick something that's more of a gold, brown, orangish, yellow something. You know, just take a look at it. You know, it depends on what you're doing. You can see what happens here, though, is that starts to come out. And I actually want to bring my reflection strength back up a little bit. Let's go to 90. Let's see what that looks like. Now, if you're not getting the contrast you want, you can actually make this a little bit closer to white. It will still have a gold tint to it. There we go. That looks more like a gold. The thing I don't like about it, though, is these are very harsh reflections. I don't like that. So this is where we're going to start working with roughness. Now, roughness is that blur. And usually it's going to be around 5 to 10. I'm going to start with 10. We may go higher, we may go lower, I don't know. But I always start in that area. That's pretty broad. You can see what it's doing here. I might do 5. And there we go. I'm going to up my quality here so we can take a better look. And there we go. So we've got gold reflections going on in here. And if we turn the bottle different directions, we get a different look because it's reflecting different things. And that looks really nice. So we're going to go ahead and do the same thing with the dark gold. We'll do it faster this time. I'm going to call it dark gold. And Same deal, we're going to get a mirror all over everything, so we have to first go in to our layer mask, and we could load it, or we could go to bitmap here, select the label. Once the label's selected, we've got this dark going on here. Of course, I didn't select the layer. That would probably help. Let me go down here. Select the dark gold layer. Also, make sure that it is set to layer alpha. That's going to come in. Now, we've got the dark gold to work with. Now, this dark gold, I want it to be less subtle, or more subtle, less blurry. So, I'm going to bring down the reflections to 50. I'm going to take my reflection strength down to like 85. We'll see what we got. Now, I want this to be broader. So that means that the roughness is going to be higher, maybe more like 15. I like that. It starts to get a little bit of a grain in it. Now we'll talk about that in a minute. And the other thing, of course, is like we talked about earlier, you've got your layer color, which is going to be kind of like your specular color. And on here, I'm going to go with that dark orangish brownish something. You can see because this area right here has more roughness, it's kind of a broader look. Now there is grain in it, and it is up to you. You probably can't even see it on here. Like, it's really nothing. In other words, I would just leave it like this if I were making that, because I like to add just a tinge of noise to everything that I do anyway, and it's probably going to get lost in there. Now, if you don't like that, you can go down here to make it cleaner. This is something I don't recommend because it really jacks up render time. I'm going to change my sampling subdivisions from 4 to 8, and it will get rid of some of that noise in here. However, it's really, really going to affect your render time. So I'm going to put that back to 4. The other thing I'm going to do, because I forgot to turn it on, I think, is go to a physical renderer instead of a standard renderer. There we go. It's always faster, for me anyway. So I like that. I like how that looks. But now I want to do the same thing, and I want to do it with the red part of the label. So I'm going to go in here. Once again, we're going to go through this same deal. We're going to do a Beckman. We're going to do red. And in our layer mask, I'm going to go down and select the label. And select the layer of the red, which is that folder that had our red stuff in it here. Now we'll have our reflection going on. Turn down our resolution here. Now I thought I had selected it. Well, let's go see what's going on here. Layer alpha. See? You gotta do that. Now we're gonna get a really, really broad reflection here. First thing is that the red is on top. We don't want that. We want the gold layers to be above that. So this just always glitches out right here. I have to do this all the time, and it happens on every version of R16 that I use. Okay, so now that red is in the background. Now it's behind those other layers. So you can see those are on top now, so that's better. In our zero being just the red label and 100 being mirror reflection, we're going to pick something like, I don't know, 50. We're going to see how that looks, because we want to have a bit of reflection going on in this label. We want it to look like a reflective label, but we don't want it to look like a super glossy label. So this is where we've got to play with this a little bit. We're going to go down to reflection strength. Start with something like 50. Really bring it down, because we want the red, and I actually want a little more red. Now, taking the reflection out isn't going to get me closer to red. Taking this mix right here down to something more like, I don't know, 40 is going to get me more to the side of the red that's on the actual label. I actually don't even like that. I'm going to take it down to 30. Because we want to get closer to the original color, yet we want to have that reflection. Now, right now, it looks like one of those super laminated labels. We don't want it to look like that. We want it to be kind of rough, and we want it to feel a little more like, I don't know how to describe it. Less like a Coke bottle label and more like a liquor bottle label. So first thing, we're going to give it a little bit of a red specular. We'll see if this is too much, not enough. I don't know. I like that. See, now all these white reflections here are turning into red. And one thing I will mention here while we're at it is your specular strength. As a general rule, because I already have my default specular on my reflection channels, unless I need it specifically, I actually go in and I turn my specular strength down. Because what's going to happen is you're going to set all of these and you're going to light something nice, maybe with a 3-point lighting system or something, and you're going to have these dots all over everything. It's because it's a specular from all the different lights. So I try and remember to keep those turned to 0. Now, back in our red channel, I'm going to go to the roughness, and I really want quite a bit of roughness. I'm thinking almost 20%. It's really going to broaden this out. See, now that is what I'm looking for. I really like that. Again, you can see, this is probably a better example. You can see how there's a lot of grain going on in here. And that's something you can choose to take out by bringing that sampling up or not. I kind of like it. I feel like it gives it almost kind of a bump feel, you know, like a little bit of grain from the label. And so that works to my advantage in this example. So we've got our reflections in here, and now I'm going to show how you add a bump and how you control the level of bump within the different reflections. So in basic here, I'm going to turn on bump, and I'm going to load, again, the same label. This is great because you can just use the same texture for everything. Just to start out, I'm going to leave the strength of the bump all the way up. And we'll go down from there. And I'm going to select the layer, which is that bump layer. Now, in this case, it doesn't matter. You can just leave this. You don't have to do layer alpha. We don't want the alpha. We want the actual layer, those gray values. And when we do that, it comes in here, and I'll turn on my quick render. And you'll see what's going on here. Slowly but surely, you're getting these lines. And these are the bump lines. This is what we want. We want to put them in here, but we want them to be more subtle, and we don't want them to be in all these other channels. We don't want them to go across all of this right here. I'll get close in case you can't see that on the video. I'm going to turn down my res just a little bit so we can go a little bit faster here. All right. So now we don't want it going through any of this. So back in Reflectance, we're going to start out with our dark gold, and there is the little option right here, bump strength. We're going to put 0. Then under light gold, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to say we want the bump strength to be 0. And let's see what else we got here. We've got the red. Now this is how we're going to adjust the red. What I would like to do here, just because I want to have a little more noise in this, not just the lines. I want to have just some slight random noise. As I'm going to go to bump. First of all, we're going to start taking this down because it's way too harsh. We're going to bring this whole thing down. Maybe not even 80. Let's take it like 40. There we go. Now that's more like it right there. But if we concentrate on this little area right here, you can see it's still kind of harsh. I'll turn this up so you can see. I am going to attempt to bring that blur scale up just a little bit. Let's do 100% so we can see what we're working with here. I don't know that you could actually bring up offset because that's going to really screw with some stuff because this is so thin. I'm going to try to, maybe sometimes where you have to go back into Photoshop. That's a little bit better. Now, I would like to bring the strength down even more. I'm going to say back to 20 where we were originally. Now, I like that, but I don't want these areas in between to be completely flat. So what I'm going to do is I'm in my bump. I'm going to add a layer here next to where my texture is loaded. I'm going to add layer. It automatically creates this layer right here with the bitmap we already had loaded in it. But I'm going to add a shader of noise that I would like to add to this entire thing. And the way you do that, I believe it's screen. Is it screen? Yeah, it's screen. Or maybe it's multiply. I always get confused which one I want. Well, either way, we'll see in a moment if it worked. I'm going to click on the bump, and I'm going to change this. I want it super fine, just like I like my women. All right, 5% on my global scale and my relative scale. You can see them coming in here. It's not super fine yet, but you can see that there is some bump coming in between these. So I have it set to multiply. So I'm multiplying this noise with my bitmap, so I have like a combined texture, which is really cool. Of course, it's not as fine as I'd like yet. I'm going to do 2s on these. I don't want animation speed. There we go. That's what I want. I want that noise right there. However, it is super, super, super noisy, and I don't want that. Now, when you've got these mixed textures, you got to work with this because you can't just go to your bump and change your bump from 20% down to 5 or something like that. You're going to lose the lines. You only want to lose the intensity of this fine bump that you've put in between. So you just simply bring this down, and that's going to lessen it on your layer. I do like 25. There we go. So we've got a little bit of noise going on in there in between. And keep in mind now we've got that bump set up so that it's only affecting red. And we'll see what this looks like here. Yeah. It's pretty good, I guess. Now that looks really slick. That really feels like it has some sort of a feel to it. If you were to pick it up and run your finger over it, you would feel those lines, and you would feel the places where it was glossy and didn't have a bump on it. And the other nice thing about that is if you were going to get super close on this label, you would actually be able to see what's going on here. I actually think this is still a little bit too intense. So I'm going to bring down that bump just a little bit more. Because if I'm super close up to it, it's going to look a little too extreme. And honestly, if I were to go back, I would probably go blur that bump map in Photoshop just a little bit more. But I like that a lot better. Now, here's the other thing about this is you have to decide with your bump if you want to have your fall off or not. I still want to be able to zoom out the camera and really be able to see those bump lines in pretty good detail. And with that fall off, the more you zoom out, the more you lose the bump. And I don't even know if you'll be able to tell. I'll let this load here so we can take a look at it. But you're losing that bump in here, and if you uncheck, then it doesn't do that fall off so much when you get far away. And sometimes you do have to turn that off if you want those bump maps to stay prominent on kind of a wide shot. Let's see if that's loading. I can't tell the difference. It does make a difference, though, if you look at the side by side. But I really like the way that looks. Now, that is set, but here's the thing. If you're designing this in one place, in one scene, and you're going to put it in another scene, and you want to make sure that all your textures and everything look correct across the board, once you get into the other scene, you might have problems. So this sky, for example, go ahead and save here. This sky, if I want to replace it with a different HDR, I'll show you how to do this from scratch, just in case you don't know. You go to Content Browser. I'm going to make sure I have presets selected, and I'm going to type HDR. And there's one called number 9 that I like. And I'm going to bring up this texture of our sky and luminance. And instead of the Brograph sky, I'm going to drag this HDR down into here. So now we've got something different to look at. And if we look at this, we may or may not like how the reflections look in a different environment. A lot of times you have to go in and you have to change your texturing a little bit based on your actual environment. Now in this environment here, we're just looking at the sea. So, I would go in, take the sky, rotate it 180 degrees. Now take a look. There we go. And I'm not getting as much reflection as I like. So, I might go adjust that a little bit. But there's something else that you can do across the board to make it super easy if it's just a case of how much reflection is going on. There's one particular that I call the Winery, which is HDR4, and it is more of a dark indoor scene. And you'll see what happens here if you load this up. I'm going to take my resolution down here. We get a lot harsher reflections. And I don't like that. And I don't want to have to go in and adjust all of these across the board. So what you do is you go to your label and you go to your reflectance. Now, right here under what we created, there's the global reflection and global specular. There's too much specular going on here, so I'm going to take that down to 69. And what do we got? All right, specular is going down, but this reflection is still super harsh because these are super harsh contrasts here. You got really light, really dark going on in this room. So what do? We go to global reflection brightness, and we just everything across the board instead of having to do it individually. If I take this down to about 60%, that's going to look a lot better. In fact, I'll probably want to bring it down even more. Let's say 45. And now I've adjusted all of those reflections across the board. I like that a lot better. Go ahead and do a higher res render here, and you can see what it looks like. There we go. And I don't know, that's still a little bit harsh. I'd go in and probably adjust that a little bit too if I were in this environment. But you get the point. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this is a better insight for you. One thing that I would like to mention that I did forget about is that when you place these, I believe if you look at the bottle here, you're going to see 2 labels. And you're going to see 2 labels because with this clear bottle being here, it's on the front and back. I'm not sure if you can make that out or not. But if that is the case, you got to make sure that your texture is set to front only so that it's only on the front side of the bottle and it's not on the back side of this object, making it look like there's 2 labels. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this. Matt did a tutorial on how to build like a Coke bottle or something like that a long time ago. It got a few hits, 16,000 or something, and it's doing really well. And I think this would be a great example to use, and then to do his tutorial, apply this to that. I would love to see what you do. Please email us. We love to see the tutorials that you do and what your results are, or even your variations on them. This would be something really cool if you're doing any sort of product shot. So yeah, go do that tutorial and combine it with this, and you'll really get a better understanding of how to build something like this and how Reflectance Channel works. I know that doing this for me and being immersed in it and having to use it all the time was extremely helpful in learning how everything worked. And if you go through these steps or try to build your own thing, I think you'll get super used to using the Reflectance Channel. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. You can get on our website and get all that information as far as how to get in touch with us. Email, Twitter, Facebook. We're on all of that fun stuff. We're in the Cinema 4D subreddit all the time. And please remember to subscribe to our newsletter. There's going to be another one coming out very soon. And we really don't send it out that often, so please subscribe, and you'll get some info on things we have coming up, fun stuff we're going to do. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And that's about it for today. Until next time, have a good one, everybody. Later, bros. It's pretty good, I guess.